The Monorail Skybridge crosses over the primary recycling station, a key element in processing waste products into usable resources. Alright, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Doom 3 commentary, and we have arrived at the Monorail Skybridge. And you know that that means we're going to board a monorail! What's that word, game? Oh yeah, I see how it is, no fun allowed, sure, just cause the Caco demons to suddenly swarm me. This is just not a lovely day. Ah well, I will vent my frustrations on these Caco demons and point to you that there is actually an armor vest back there, in case your armor is not at 125 points. I don't see why it wouldn't be, but you can never be too sure in this game sometimes. Right, cycle the airlock, and we enter the recycling plant, I believe it is. I think it's sort of a recycling sector. We'll get to see more of it in the following level, but this stage is actually one of my favorites. It has a wide variety of enemies. It's got a wide variety of chances for me to use various different guns. It's kind of a fun one. It does have a couple of very certain flaws that I wish to address, but as it stands, it's a pretty fun level. I get to use my chainsaw some more, so that means it's obviously going to be the best level in the game. Because why wouldn't you want to use a chainsaw? Ever, under any circumstances. Actually, there is one circumstance where I wouldn't recommend you use the chainsaw, and that's namely against the Pinky Demons. I think I only demonstrated it once, but Pinky Demons just have very quick melee attacks, and the chainsaw is actually the least practical item to use against them in this game. Which is the polar opposite of what you did in the classic Doom games, but this is Doom 3. Revolutionizing technology and chainsaws and Pinky Demons. Oh good lord, it is Steve the spooky spiffy skeleton, who has horrific aim. Not horrific aim, but just horrid aim. Revenants! They return from the Doom 2 days. They have considerably slower walking speed, or even running speed for that matter. They don't even run. I believe in the trailer for Doom 3, the very earlier one, they actually showed that Revenants were much more inclined to sprint towards you and use melee attacks. But in the final product, they're just walking incredibly slowly, and they often just shoot missiles instead. Their missiles have homing properties, and a point I alluded to before with the plasma rifle, since it's very proficient at getting rid of projectiles in the air, then you can just sort of aim towards the Revenant, and oftentimes you will very easily kill that guy, and in turn destroys projectiles in the process. So, all in all, this weapon, very good against Revenants. Among other things, we get to use the chain gun as well. I will be demonstrating that because we'll pretty much be getting a full refill of chain gun ammo in this level. Unless I just decide to use all of it, but that's besides the point. Once we encounter more Revenants, I'll explain a few more things about them, namely because I just want to use the chainsaw against one of them. Very specific reasons behind that one. First of all, we have to worry about this guy, and watching for this Pinky Demon. He might actually get a hit on me. Nope, never mind, he decided he had to stop and go, "Rawr, I'm a Pinky Demon, I'm spooky!" And you don't get to see a lot of them. That is one point that I do favor about this level again as well, is that there's actually quite a wide variety of enemies. I mean, not this enemy, is that even though they take the time to show in a cutscene, it's really just an imp that spawns behind you in the process, or in front of you. I think I killed an enemy before it spawned in. As I was saying, however, this level kind of has a wide variety of enemies. We're gonna run backwards and spawn the next enemy here, by the way, which would be this maggot. But most levels, you may have noticed a common trend is that they only tend to use about a maximum of 4 or 5 different types within a level. But I appreciate how they decided to eventually go all out about towards the middle of the game, where they were like, alright, let's just use all of the enemies that we have available to us. And I appreciate that gesture, because I can see why Doom 3 would essentially turn off a number of people at the start, because it really does have a bit of a slower pace at first, before they eventually remember, oh yeah, I guess we were sort of designing a Doom game in the process of all this. So I'd say that you should probably just play up to this point and then maybe make a judgment of whether or not you'd want to continue, because I still genuinely think Doom 3 is a great video game overall. Just a very good single-player campaign shooter that you should maybe get your hands on now and then. It used to be about $10 on Steam, but now it's like about $5 or something, and it's just become a much greater deal as time has gone on. There you go, chainsawing one of the revenants. You notice that the melee attack he attempted to use was actually a punch followed by an uppercut. That is very dangerous to get hit by, so yeah, I just recommend maybe not try and use the chainsaw very often against revenants, especially when there are stairs, just because that might mess you up. I'm gonna damage myself a little bit with a grenade right here. You know what? There we go. And that's because I want to pick up this armor. Picking up this armor will spawn 4 imps. I don't know why, that's just the nature of this one. So let's use the explosive barrels to our advantage. Once we get rid of those 2, that will spawn another one right in front of me. And one over there. Walk into the barrel, buddy. Oh, that may not have been enough. Oh, no, that was a decent amount of damage, sure. Speaking of imps, there's actually one of those happy hopping imps behind this corner. Boom. A little bit of Doom trivia. There was actually a variant of an imp who would constantly be crawling on the floor, and he would try to swipe at your knees using his claws, and he would never stand up. I think they used that in the Doom 3 BFG Edition only expansion pack called Lost Mission. And I have some choice words for the BFG edition of this game. I'm not sure when would be the best time to talk about my opinions on it. There are a number of things that I felt it did wrong when it came to converting Doom 3 to higher quality standards, but I'll save that ramble for another time. Let's just focus on Doom 3 Classic, playing in widescreen mode once again. By the way, if you didn't figure this out from the very first episode of the series, you can set this game to a 1920 by 1080 resolution in the configuration file. I think a lot of people know that at this point, but it never hurts to stress that fact out. So, I've mentioned that there's gonna be... No, I don't think I actually mentioned this point. That may have just been one of my failed attempts at recording. But a long time ago, there was this level. I believe it was the first Alpha Lab sector, actually, where I mentioned that there was kind of a theme to the level where running backwards would cause extra enemies to spawn. This entire level is built around that concept. The game will punish you for retreating, for getting lost, for backtracking. Just doing anything running backwards in specific areas just causes a whole bunch of extra enemies to spawn. And it gets kind of ridiculous at certain points, because there are certain distances that you just know you would never run in any case, other than the fact that you were probably getting lost, in which case I have to commend you for that sort of incompetence, because chances are I suffered the exact same kind of incompetence when I first played this game. Hey, it can happen to anyone. Getting lost is just one of those things that happens when you don't have specific areas that, well, look iconic. And in the case of Doom 3, I'd say it happens a little less, just because they have a much wider palette of colors and textures that they could use compared to the classic Doom days. But that's just my thoughts on it. There's a pack of cells right here, and I have a tendency to miss those plasma packs, so it's best that you pick those up. In fact, picking up this armor also spawns a couple of extra enemies. Some of these pickups, of course, you may know already, is that a certain factor of them is you need to have actually taken damage first in order to properly pick them up, and then that will cause enemies to spawn. And I really hate it when enemies prefer that method of spawning extra enemies, because, you know, just running over an object and it doesn't spawn extra enemies, and ugh. When you're attempting to go for as many kills as possible, it gets a little irritating at times, a little bit frustrating. Watch out for them missiles. A very quick and easy method of dodging missiles is to just quickly strafe to the left or to the right. And a lot of the times, the missiles will no longer home towards your body, and they will instead just collide with a wall or something. I think if they travel enough of a distance, they will eventually explode, even if they, like, don't make contact with a wall or something, so fret not on that fact. I'm going to go ahead and actually start running backwards, because this is one of the first enemy spawns that I would like to point out. These two guys. Like, I don't know why you would run down these stairs unless you're incredibly terrified of revenants, but I said it before, we have a plasma gun, we have a chain gun, we have a chainsaw, we have just about any reasonable weapon to use against the revenants, the dreaded revenants, so I fail to see the point in running back such a distance, unless you were possibly scrounging for additional items that you may have neglected to pick up before. So here is the carpet of toxic sludge, and much like the toxic sludge in the classic games, running across it does not instantly kill you, it only damages you a little bit at a time. So in theory, if we wanted to speedrun, we could just, you know, run over this entire goop. But unfortunately, our pathway is a little bit higher than our knees will allow us, because I can't possibly use my hands to grab onto a ledge and pull myself up. No sir, that's only in Doom 4. By the way, that over there is a closet. Not sure if you could tell, but guess what enemy is behind it? And, well, if you got the answer incorrect, at least you tried guessing. By the way, watch out for this guy as well. I was hoping I wouldn't get hit by him right there. I want to pick up these bullets as well, get locked in the closet for a minute, but then get let back out because the game was feeling somewhat merciful. Don't think there's any extra enemy I can spawn by running backwards. Maybe not. Instead, I'm just gonna have that guy go rawr, blow him up with the explosive barrels, startle that guy, and maybe I can kill him with this barrel? No, it wasn't quite enough damage to do the job. That's a shame. Instead, I'm just going to vent my frustrations on that guy who knocks that pillar over. Wow, you are just lurching all over the place, aren't you? Just stop still. That's kind of a problem with the pistol once more. Never can fail to stress this point enough. The fact that it's perfectly accurate can be somewhat detrimental at times, especially given the nature of how some enemies move in this game. It's much nicer when imps use a slower form of a fireball launching trick. Hey, it's a video disc! We haven't encountered one of these in a while! This video disc provides a very exciting briefing on health and safety precautions in the maintenance parts of the recycling plant. Very exciting. We're never going to view that one. Also, a PDA by Nicholas Sadowage. Extend the service ladder, and we are going to climb our way up so that way we can get to the flow control system. And we're going to stare at a very special... Okay, never mind. I guess we aren't going to stare at a very special enemy, because the enemy decided to trigger itself before I had a chance to show his odd behavior in standing still. What is your problem, dude? Seriously. But that first imp that wandered around the corner, I've seen him just sort of standing idly, and he even walks forward, but he doesn't move his arms in rhythm with his legs, which looks kind of amusing. Because I have seen some of the zombie security guards do that as well. It's kind of like a T-pose, but not necessarily the same way. It looks really silly when they start to run around like that. Right, execute the emergency shutdown, pick up all of this stuff, all that crap. Lots of items, very good to have. Break out your plasma gun, because we're going to start running backwards and spawning an enemy that appears out of nowhere. That guy. And if you run even further down the stairs, that's right, even after we spawned those two surprise imps between these little pumps, if you run even further back at this particular point in time, guess what spawns? It's another imp. Why would you do this? I don't know. If you can provide for me a valid answer in the comments section, I would be highly appreciative, because I don't know about that one. Right. Sorry, my sprinting meter has appeared to have run a little bit dry. Just give me a moment to recharge it, run through this door. Boom! How you doing, buddy? And with that, it is now safe to cross on the now dried up toxic sludge. There's also that guy over there. I would normally let this guy damage me if I had taken a bit of damage prior to, you know, encountering him. And that's really because there's yet another enemy spawn that involves this piece of armor. And this one, it managed to kind of elude me for a long time simply because I just did not the armor pickup to begin with. But this locks you in the closet with 2 zombies. That's pretty much it. So, full on armor, not quite full on health, but we will be reaching that health cap at a certain point in time. And use the explosive barrels to get rid of that guy. Immediately turn to the right and notice that shadowy area. There are 150 chain gun rounds in that place. That's just about more than enough than we exactly require at the moment. So I think it's if you pick up 2 of the items, then that's probably not so bad. But if you pick up all 3 items, that spawns 5 imps. Just by standing back here. You can actually cancel out this enemy spawn early just by running forward. But it's kind of amusing to see, you know, 5 extra imps just kind of appearing out of nowhere after you collect that stash of chain gun ammo. It's a very nice refill. Get to use the chain gun again. That's always a fun factor in my opinion. And I want you to pay attention to this piece of machinery. This is going to collapse as soon as we move forward. And, hang on. We do that again. I think it's designed to block you, but it really doesn't necessarily do a good job of it if you could just sort of... Hang on, I need to take care of this guy first. If you could just sort of do that, and that pinky demon becomes less of a problem. And his cousin as well. He doesn't really know where to move at this point in time. But now you can watch their idle animations, which is pretty amusing. I could probably stand here and cheese this artificial intelligence for as long as I want, but at some point we will have to get a move on with the level itself, so let's just jump back into the fray, find out where Mr. Pinky is gone. Where has he gone? Because I don't often try to get these guys lost. Let me just open this door real quick. Oh, there he is. How you doing? Okay. Yeah, I'm here. He returned to his original location where he spawned. That's what I'm going to assume. Let's pick up these items. Break out our pistol because we're going to be encountering a small squadron of spiders. This is pretty much known as the dreaded spider tunnel, where it's just got a bunch of spiders, but they only spawn in like small batches at a time. Those two behind you are probably considerably scarier because anytime an enemy spawns behind you and you don't expect it, it's gonna throw you off your game tremendously. We're gonna run forward a little bit more, spawn a few more spiders around that corner. One should walk right off of that bit of debris. Boom. And there should be a few more around that bend. Or just one. No, there's the second guy. It takes a little bit of time for them to sling off of their webs. There is going to be one singular spider that spawns behind you as soon as you make a bit more progress in this area, but first, gonna spawn that imp around there. Oh, cool, that was actually... I didn't expect that to work, but hey, got the spider as well. It's if you proceed to run forward here, and then immediately double back, you can find that guy just kind of crawling out of nowhere. Boom. I do enjoy these little sections where there are just a few spiders because it gives me a valid excuse to use the pistol. Right. With that out of the way, let's move forward. Alert that maggot of our presence. There's also a revenant who is completely aware of the fact that we exist, even though he didn't have to see us around the corner at first. Also, be mindful of these two spiders that appear behind you. I think I managed to kill that guy. Yes, I did. Well, you can see there's a row of explosive barrels around the corner, so you know that only means overkill. But that door is actually a fairly scary door, because out walks Steve's second brother, Joe. And Joe, he's not positioned in the best area, because this area is covered in toxic slime, and that can be a little bit scary. Around this bend there are going to be a couple surprise maggots, but we have a machine gun, so we could stun them fairly easily. I guess we could sort of stun them, it's just they don't have a tendency to move around as much as they used to. There's a PDA of Anthony Gaja, and up on the ledge is an imp. That's it. But you can see, we have come across a new weapon. It's been a while since we encountered a new weapon, but we finally got our hands on a Bullwinkle cannon. Also, rockets over here. Now, the rocket launcher! This weapon, probably my all-time favorite in all of Doom 3. It shoots accurate missiles. Like, that's kind of an issue I had with the rocket launcher in the classic Doom games, and granted, it feels kind of odd to say this because it was kind of limitations at the time of the game's creation, but the auto-aim system in Doom Classic was just super annoying to work with, because sometimes the missiles will travel in directions that you want them to travel, and other times they just go flying in the exact opposite direction that you wanted them to head. In this game, they shoot perfectly accurately, and if you aim the missiles just right, yes, indeed, they can headshot, which makes it just even 10 times better. Normally, if you shoot for body shots, then you can kill revenants in 2 rockets, but headshots kill them instantly, which is lovely. It is technically possible to rocket jump with this weapon as well, but your jumps are actually fairly piddly. And you don't go as high a distance as, say, this, unfortunately, which I know they probably had a valid reason for doing that, because they wanted to avoid players doing some extreme sequence breaking, but that also kind of brings up the fact that, you know, Doom 3 has a lot of enclosed spaces, and there really isn't much room to rocket jump to begin with, but it's just, rocket jumping is really not worth your time. But that is the end of Recycling 1, so let's move on to Recycling Plant number 2.